Welcome to this episode of the Skiff Meetings podcast, a podcast for curious professionals embracing the future of business events. My name is Miguel Neves, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Skiff Meetings. And in this episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with David Peckinpaugh, the president and CEO of Maritz Holdings. The episode is titled Unleashing Human Potential, because this is one of the initiatives within Maritz, and I asked David about how he actually puts this into practice. We talk about some of the challenges he's having in reorganizing the Maritz brand into one company, and we talk about how Maritz manages its workforce and how it's helping its clients in dealing with remote and hybrid workforce setups. We talk about innovation and design and how that's constantly a part of how Maritz works, and we talk about why David feels that airlines should engage more with the meetings industry. I hope you enjoy listening to this conversation, and I invite you to check out the other episodes of the podcast. You can find them on our website or by subscribing through your favorite podcast service.
Now for a word from our sponsors, PHL Life Sciences, a division of the Philadelphia Convention and Visitors Bureau. Host your convention or trade show in Philadelphia, one of America's leading life sciences hubs. PHL Life Sciences, the first and only CVB division of its kind, will connect you to the professionals at the forefront of your industry and to a culture you can only find in Philadelphia. A city known for its rich history that's forging a bright future, Philadelphia challenges the expected and defies convention. A world of discovery is waiting. Visit phllife.com to learn more.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Skiff Meetings podcast. I am delighted to be with David Peckinpaugh, the CEO of Maritz. Thank you, David, for making time to be with us today.
Hey, thank you for the invitation. My pleasure.
I say with David virtually in this case, but we will be together on stage at the Skiff Meetings Forum in September. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. So I thought I'd start by really getting a little bit of an intro to David. And David, I know you've been in the industry something like 30 years. You've been with Maritz for a long part of that as well. I don't want to, give exact dates or anything like that, but you've had a really interesting journey. So I wonder if you could give us, in your own words, a succinct kind of tour of that journey, if you will. And I'd love to start by when you first became aware of the industry. I think a lot of people aren't necessarily, during their studies, et cetera, aren't necessarily aware of events and kind of meetings as an industry. So if you could start there and kind of take us to the present day, that would be great.
Yeah, I don't know if we have enough time for that because, as you mentioned, it's been a long career so far. But I'm one of the ones in the industry that sort of fell into it. It was not planned. I really had originally planned to be an attorney, had applied to law school, was planning to go to law school. Life events happened. And instead of doing that, I took 2 years off and was a sail bum for a year and a ski bum for a year. And then joined a family business for a few years. Knew that was not right for me and moved back to Colorado. I went to Colorado College for my undergraduate.
And what is the family business, just out of curiosity?
Well, it's really boring. It was a manufacturer's representative company with ferrous and non-ferrous metals.
Okay.
So it was not my cup of tea, but I tried. My dad was an attorney and had this business on the side, and I gave it the old college try, but it was just not the right fit for me. Moved to Colorado, was put in touch with someone at the Broadmoor Hotel. This is 1984. That's probably the only date I'll give you. So it's been almost 40 years now. And they were hiring the first ever outside sales force. And so I was the first sales manager hired at the Broadmoor, and that started my career. I was at the Broadmoor. I went to La Costa out in California, back to Cheyenne Mountain Conference Resort. Then I joined Hyatt Hotels in Denver, San Diego, Long Beach. And then my last hotel was MGM Grand. I was vice president of sales and marketing out there. And then I got into the third party world. So late 90s, joined a company called Confront that became Experience. And I'll tie all this in. Was there for 8 years, then went back to California and ran the Convention Visitors Bureau in San Diego, and then was recruited, spent some time with Helms Briscoe, developing some new markets for them, and then was recruited to Maritz 12 years ago. And
Wow.
so I've really it's been a very unusual journey. It's not one perhaps I would recommend to everybody, but it's worked well for me. And I always came with that philosophy of, when an opportunity opened, I wanted to explore that. And if it made sense, I'd take the leap. After my wife and I had children later in life, we'd been married 12 years before we had our first child. Then things slowed down a little bit and I didn't make as many moves, but I moved quite a bit and made a lot of changes early in my career. So I've done the hotel part, third party part, and then the convention visitor bureau part as well. So kind of unusual, but it's also served me well because I have that well-rounded background really of every segment.
I was going to say, I think you've pretty much covered all the typical kind of components of the industry. Are there any areas that you would have liked to have explored more, or you're curious about kind of learning more about?
The one thing I look back and during my stint at the MGM, I also oversaw catering, and which was somewhat of a joke because I was not a foodie and it was more sort of operational focused. But I do look back and go, I wish I had spent more time on the culinary side, because as I've grown older and really appreciated the culinary arts to a much greater degree, I wish I had a deeper knowledge of food and beverage, and that would have probably been one area of the career I wish I had gone deeper in. But I was really a sales guy, and the operations side of the business, especially the hotel side, just didn't really appeal to me, which is why I didn't go down that path.
Makes sense. So let's talk a little bit about Maritz. I mean, Maritz is also a connection or a conjunction of different companies. I believe that you're kind of really merging now and becoming one global kind of organization with all these different facets. But can you give us a short overview of the different companies and sort of the history that brings Maritz all together?
Yeah, I will again try to be as succinct as I can. So Maritz is 130 years old shortly. So in the fourth generation of ownership from the Maritz family, and Steve Maritz is our owner, and he's the chairman of our board. Steve appointed me CEO about a year and a half ago, January 1st of 22.
And you're the first non-family member to be CEO.
First non-family member, so no pressure. He basically gave me keys of the car and said, "Don't crash it." So I'm doing my best not to do that. But over the years, Maritz has innovated and evolved, as you can imagine, many different times. Up until recently, we've really been a holdings company. So we've had that mindset of a holdings company with separate business units. And those business units were Maritz Global Events, Maritz Motivation, and Maritz Automotive. And what I did after I took over this new role is embarked on about almost an 8-month process that we called Next 125. We were playing off our 125th anniversary that happened a few years ago. And how do we revision the company so that we're around for another 125 years and hopefully even longer? And so that led to a lot of self-discovery. We did an immense amount of research. We spent almost 4 months doing research, talking to past employees, to clients, past clients, a lot of focus groups. I think we did over 180 interviews and got a diverse set of data sets that then informed our decision. And so we're in the process now. We're early stages, but really clarifying our brand in the marketplace. And we're going to be going to market as just Maritz. So we're getting rid of the business unit model and we're going to one company, one brand. I think everyone that refers to us has always referred to us as Maritz. I think we were trying to impose our internal structure on the marketplace versus really being more welcoming to the marketplace and being easier to do business with. And I think that's what this new singular brand will allow us to do. So we're in the process of that. I've redesigned my leadership team. Actually, our first new leadership team meeting is next Monday. So really early stages in this evolution. It's going to take pretty much the rest of our fiscal year to go through rebranding, redesign of the website, just getting people used to new vernacular, if you will, among the business. But that's the fun of change. But we're doing all this because we're focused on, number one, the client, what are our clients' needs and how do we satisfy those needs? Number two is how do we take care of our people and create a really interesting career and career pathing for our people and a culture that is really enriching and empowering. And we also want to make sure we're taking care of our supplier partners. And we think this clarity of brand is going to help all that and ultimately drive growth. That's the number one thing is we need long-term sustainable growth in order to achieve all those previous goals.
I'm really happy to hear you say about the not imposing the company structure on the clients and the public in general. I think that is, in my mind, a mistake that a lot of companies do. You see that on websites, you see that in marketing materials. It really doesn't matter which department someone's at. Can they help you, right? Can they help you get what you want? I think that's sort of the big question for the consumer.
And Maritz is such a powerful brand that I think the clarity of that is empowering to everybody, and the reaction internally has been really strong. I think people love it. They're, with any kind of change, people are a little bit skittish and afraid, but I think we're trying to be very transparent, trying to be very open in the process. This is all about, empowering our workforce so that we can grow. And I think that's an exciting story to share.
Absolutely. I wondered if you could share some examples, obviously no company secrets, but any examples of what you thought was surprising maybe of how the different companies and different departments worked that you actually, had to work harder at than maybe you would expect. Because I think it's relatively obvious to me, I think, that automotive events and the type of events that sector might be doing compared to global events might be different. And, like the clients are different. But in terms of the inner workings, in a kind of simple sense, it sounds like, oh, this should be easy. You just sort of set it up. But what were some of the surprising things that you had to work harder on than you maybe thought you would?
Yeah, I think a couple things. One is the technology side of the business. We have you can imagine with all those different business units. And at one point, I don't know, probably 13, 14 years ago, we had 7 business units. So Steve sold a couple off and then consolidated a couple others. So it's over time, because of that, our IT infrastructure became very complex, and it still is complex, and it's one that's going to take a while to unwind. But we've got a great team that is on top of that and is going to get us through that. But that's a multi-year process as we work through sort of that untangling of interconnected technology that was serving different parts of the enterprise. The second surprise to me was really around culture. You would think, because we're all part of one overall Maritz, that the cultures would be very similar. And I think as we embarked on the Next 125 initiative, the uniqueness of culture in each of the businesses really came to life. And so we really took that to heart and said, okay, we can't lose some of those really important elements that are critical to the employees of the motivation company or our auto company, but blend that all into a singular culture that's going to work for everybody. So I think those are two things. And then I do think we overall have very distinct buying audiences, but in some instances there's significant overlap, and I think that's one of the things we are going to maximize as we look at those market opportunities. Is there's a lot more similarity between our buying audiences than perhaps we thought, and now we need to make sure that we take advantage of that.
Really interesting. I read some things in your bio and kind of the company culture, core values. I think 2 things really stood out to me. You have this concept of first take good care of each other, which I think speaks to this idea of well-being and wellness and kind of making sure that you have a healthy workforce rather than a stressed and overworked workforce. I don't think that helps anyone. And you also have this idea of unleashing human potential. And you mentioned company culture already, so I wonder if you could expand on those 2 things a little bit.
Sure. Well, first of all, unfortunately, I think coming out of what we've all experienced the last few years, we do have an overworked and stressed workforce. I don't want to paint a Pollyannish picture of what we're all going through. It's still a very difficult environment. It's exciting because the business is back and roaring back and as busy as ever, but the workforce has changed. We have a significant number of new employees that are part of the organization because of, unfortunately, what we had to go through. So there's a lot of still stress within the organization, but we've not lost our focus on our core value, which is first taking care of each other. And that's one of the core values that existed in Maritz Global Events. Now we're going to be in the process of really broadening that across all of Maritz. But I think, for us, it's a 4-stakeholder model. It's first and foremost our employees, it's our clients, it's our supplier partners, and then it's the communities that we operate in. And we use that as a filter really in every decision that we make is, are we taking good care of our suppliers? Are we taking good care of our employees? Are we taking good care of our clients? And then obviously the communities in which we either live and operate in or do events in. And so that's really critical to us. And what I've always enjoyed as a leader is having a core value that it resonates with them. And if you walk the halls of our company, I would bet a high percentage of our employees would be able to at least tell you that one core value. And we call it our central core value. And I think that's important. I think now we get called on the carpet at times, as you can imagine. It's like, okay, you made that decision that didn't take good care of that individual or that situation. And we have to take that to heart. We need that feedback. But it is something that we really do strive for. And if you look at what we do, we're a company that empowers and inspires people to drive better business results. I mean, that really, no matter what audience we're talking to, whether it's a client, it's an incentive program for an employee program, or it's a travel program. At the end of the day, that's what it's about: engaging and inspiring people to drive better business results. And that, to me, is all about unleashing human potential. And so we, as an industry, have a unique opportunity to touch people emotionally. We can change behavior and impact behavior, and thus we can change results for the organizations that are investing in these programs. And so we've really simplified it down into unleashing human potential. Every opportunity we have to interact with one of our clients' guests is an opportunity to unleash their potential. And we take that to heart, and we put that into our design practice. And it's core to everything that we do as we look at how do we do that? How do we, if we're planning one of our own internal events, how do we look at that as an opportunity with each of the audiences there to truly help unleash their potential, no matter what that is? And everyone is unique, everyone is different. So we have to design with that sort of a mass customization in mind, if you will, when you're dealing with event and event design.
I think these missions and values, I think they're very important with all companies. Do you have any examples that come to mind of this idea of unleashing human potential? Because it sounds like a big mission that can apply to absolutely everyone in every situation.
Very esoteric, for sure.
Exactly. But do you have any examples that come to mind of, I don't know, somebody that's changed roles, or somebody that you'd really helped, either a client or internally, or anyone where you can really kind of synthesize that into a concrete example?
Yeah, I think, I go back to a client. I won't use the client name, but the client contact was one of the early clients that embarked on a design journey with us. We started our design practice back in 2011. Jim Gilmore, the author of Experience Economy, worked with us as we built out that practice. Greg Bogue was the key architect of that. And this client that I'm thinking of really embarked on that journey with us very early. And then eventually down the road became an employee because he was so moved by the results. But we worked with that organization. It was a sales conference. It was a organization that was struggling culturally, particularly around their sales organization. Leadership was seen as distracted, disconnected, not in tune. And we put them through our design lab, and the results were remarkable. And when this individual talks about it, he tears up every time. It's amazing the impact that it had on him and his career and his life. But then the stories he tells about the sales leader and how it had changed his behavior and how he changed how he interacted with the sales force, little things that they did at that first kickoff conference that have then taken on a life of their own and made a significant difference, impacted business results, right? Sales went through the roof, culture changed, leadership respect changed, and trust within that leadership and that team changed. So to me, that's a very concrete example of, because of our work with that client, hand in hand, collaboratively going through a design process, unleash the potential of that leader, of that sales organization, and ultimately of our client contact that is still on that journey with us, no longer as an employee, but as a regular participant in client work and our own events.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. You mentioned already a little bit about company culture. Just curious about how Maritz is working on the remote working side of things. How are you dealing with the people in the office, working from home? What kind of freedom are you giving your employees?
Yeah, it's interesting. I did a presentation 6 or 9 months ago to the whole company, and we did a heat map of where our employees were based 10 years ago and where our employees are based today. And 10 years ago, we were very concentrated around where we had physical offices, as you can imagine. A heavy concentration in St. Louis. We had, offices in Southern California and the East Coast, Detroit, Ohio, and everything was concentrated around that. Now you look at the heat map and it is completely dispersed. We have a very decentralized workforce. Number of employees, our headquarters are in St. Louis. Number of employees that we have in the headquarter area is greatly reduced. And with that comes challenges and also great opportunity. The opportunities, we've been able to really change how we recruit and find talent and bring talent into the organization. It's helped with our DE&I efforts. It's helped with upgrading our skill sets and finding, frankly, better talent. Now we've lost a lot of great talent, unfortunately, and we would love to get everyone back if we could, but people made other decisions and moved on. But I think the challenge of building and maintaining a culture in that environment is really tough. I believe it was the CEO of Google had a phrase that I really grabbed onto, which is encouraging people to come back into the workforce has to be a magnet, not a mandate. And so that really resonated with me as we were, coming out of the pandemic and struggling with how to manage this decentralized workforce. I mean, we've had remote workers for, decades, so that model was not new. But without that concentration of employees that could be physically together has created a whole new set of challenges. So I think looking at what we can do to be a magnet to get people, if they are near an office location, to come in and engage. I think people naturally want to do that. We do not have a mandate at the company, and we have great participation, live in-person participation, because people want that human connection. But it also doesn't make sense to force somebody to commute an hour and a half each day in order just to make that happen. So we put a lot of programs in. We've launched a new employee recognition reward program called Confetti. I've stepped up the communications. We now have regularly scheduled town halls, all company town halls, whether you're there in person or remote. I do a monthly video newsletter where I try to update everyone on what's going on and key initiatives within the company. We have our internal intranet, My Maritz, that we really spend a lot of time and energy to make sure that critical information is there for everyone to garner. And then we take advantage of our industry events, right? We are heavily participating in IMEX, both Frankfurt and IMEX America. So we have a sales meeting around that conference. So we look at those opportunities. We also have our own events, Activate, Elevate. We have a customer advisory board. We have our own internal incentive programs. Those are all ways to gather our teams, remote teams, all together in person. And then that allows us to continue to build and reinforce our culture. So it's a challenge. It's a multifaceted, approach that is making sure that we're doing the best we can. But we're still early on in that journey and learning like everyone else. But fortunately, it's what we do, right? We're a people and performance company, and it's sort of part of our DNA and how we interact and treat our people and build culture.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I believe that you're also working with clients to help them do that, right? To help them have magnets that attract people to physical locations. Can you
Correct.
share a little bit about, I guess, what you're being asked to do, and
Yeah.
I don't know, part of the design process of how do you get there?
Yeah, we have a pretty I think robust practice around the the work, excuse me, the workplace experience. And we've got several clients, one particularly large technology company that has a big physical footprint around the country and around the globe. And we've been engaged with them for several years now in managing all of their meetings. And their meetings are all on campus. They're not room night related overnight programs, but day meetings, vast majority of them. And they're like 29,000 of those events a year. So the volume is huge. And again, that's where, I think making events a magnet versus having a mandate really works. And so we've worked diligently with that client, with our design practice, to see what are those elements that would engage an employee and encourage them to come back, be on campus, to be engaged face to face whenever possible. And so I think you hear me talk about design a lot, and I think that is at the essence of everything that we're doing. It's why these clients are selecting us as a partner because of that design expertise and design practice. And we've got a pretty amazing program that we work with clients on in a very collaborative way that gets down to what are their core values, what are their core missions, what are their core business objectives, and then how do we design to help them achieve each and every one of those. And the results of that are transformational. It's pretty remarkable, the results that we get and the clients get, and it's been really good for our business, and it's been really good for our clients as well.
Really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's a fascinating trend, right? Because this idea that we're sort of familiar with a lot of different types of events, this kind of kickoff call or kickoff conference, different types of events that are sort of customer with large companies. But it seems like this return to the office is a new category that sort of has its own needs and has its own kind of design journey, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, the workplace experience is, it's an internal practice of ours now. It's been in place for almost 4 years. So we're really well situated to do that because we have all the kind of programs that you can use to recognize and reward employees, to incentivize them, whether it's through a points-driven program or a travel program. That's the history of Maritz, and so we've been really well positioned to help companies deal with their challenges that they're facing in this new environment. And you see a lot of different stories about some companies are changing their tune and they're now making everyone come back on campus or into the office. It's a mixed bag. And I think every company has to come up with their own decision and what works for them and their culture and based on their values and how they're going to nurture their employee base. And so I don't think there's one right answer. I think it has to be right for you as the individual leader in the organization.
Absolutely.
Are you ready to celebrate your successes in the world of meetings and events? The Skift Meetings Awards are back for 2024, recognizing the most innovative business events companies across 15 categories, and we want you to be a part of it. Winners will feature on Skift Meetings, sending a clear signal to events professionals around the world that these are partners they can rely on. The final deadline for submissions is June 11th. We encourage you to start your submission today to secure the best entry rates. For more information and to start your submission, head to live.skift.com.
You mentioned already the design processes that you have, and I know that you're working on something new or you've worked on it, but you're sort of fine-tuning it still, and I think it's something that Greg's been working on. Tell us a little bit about this kind of new design process or new design initiative, and I assume that you're already using it with some of the clients.
Yeah, I mean, it's the practice has been, again, we started with Greg and Jim Gilmore and others back in 2011, so it has a natural evolution to it. So it is constantly changing. So what we do today is very different than what we were doing 6 months ago or a year ago, and that's based on iterative design. We've got a pretty robust innovation practice. That innovation practice then informs design. We have a robust data decision sciences practice. That data then informs design. And so everything feeds into that, which then drives the evolution of that practice. And now we have, new entrants like AI, which, has been around for a while, but has suddenly in the last 6 months or so really exploded, obviously with ChatGPT and all the dialogue that's going on with that. But AI and virtual reality has been around for a while. And we've embraced that through our innovation practice and then our design practice. So, we use our own events as our beta test sites and sort of our guinea pigs. And we have 2 events coming up this summer and fall: Elevate and Activate. One is a supplier event, the other is a client event. And we roll out new initiatives, new ideas, and new design concepts at those conferences. And so we hope we surprise and delight our audiences. They always know it's a bit of an experiment, and so I think there's a little bit of grace that is given to us. Last year at our last conference called Next Stand, we tried to really shake up the model. There was no keynote address. I did an opening address on video, and that was sent out in advance. So we're constantly looking at ways to engage audiences in different ways and make, I think the one, and I give Greg credit for this, Greg Bug, is we want to make sure that when we're together, we're doing things that we can only do when we're together and we can't do when we're apart. And so that to me is the challenge of event design: is how do you make sure that the time is really well spent, that the investment of that time is worth it, and that you are doing things that can only be done in person, can't be done like we're doing today, remotely, screen to screen versus face to face.
So we had Greg on the Experience Design Summit that we had, I think, at the end of last year, and he talked about that event, and convincing you to do a video address, I think, was an interesting part of that conversation.
Yeah, and it worked great, and I probably got more commentary and feedback on that during the event than had I done it live. I mean, I don't know what that says about me or my ability to speak, but I think we're always trying to shake it up, and people learn differently. They devour content differently, and we've got to be ahead of that curve constantly.
Absolutely. And Greg mentioned the to you, with you, by you kind of evolution of the design. I think that's sort of what you were saying as well, that idea that really keeping the participants at the center of whatever you do at in-person events.
And it creates a whole nother set of challenges, right? Because, the old cut and paste agenda, fortunately, hopefully that has died years ago, but that still exists. And really co-creating, not only with your client partners, but then with your attendees, is really a powerful, powerful concept. And that's what we're constantly experimenting with, and we'll be doing more of that in our events coming up.
Interesting to hear. So I want to touch on 2 kind of topics that are a bit wider on the industry. And then I want to cover some of the challenges in the industry with you, because I'd love to get your thoughts on these. But I think you also mentioned a little bit about what makes Maritz. And I think sustainability is increasingly a part of what makes Maritz. And I think let's not beat around the bush, right? Sustainability and motivating people to travel internationally to events, they're quite far apart. I think there's an argument to say that we are promoting a lot of travel that doesn't necessarily have to happen, but on the other side, we want to use the magic of that in-person gathering. How do you kind of bring this all together? Because I think you want to make sure that sustainability and the future of everybody is at stake, and you're mindful of that, but you also want to make a business, make money.
Right. I mean, it's a tricky thing for our industry, right? Because we're in the business of gathering people. What we found, I think, as an industry during the pandemic was that while technology is a great way to remain connected, it really is not a replacement for in-person events. And I think that's why we see, even with some of the rumblings of a possible economic slowdown, we're not seeing that at all on the business event side of the enterprise. And so I think people are all in person events. You certainly still have hybrid components and virtual components, but that is the essence of what we do and how we do it. So now it's how do we become a responsible citizen of the globe and participate in environmental strategy in ways that makes a difference. We're signed on to a carbon neutral pact by 2050. We've got Rachel Riggs as our environmental strategy leader, reporting to Ben Godegeber. Ben is our global leader and leading both our environmental strategy and our DE&I efforts. And all are really important about being a global citizen. And it's also becoming a business imperative, right? Our clients expect us to have initiatives that meet their own standards and needs. And we have our own standards and requirements of who we work with and our supplier base. And so I think it's that collaboration as an industry to work towards solutions that make sense. I think is really the logical path forward. You see airlines going to biofuels. That's really exciting. That's going to make a big difference. More efficient airplanes is going to make a significant difference. But we've got to continue that path. And I don't think we have all the answers now, but I am encouraged on the path that we're on and the ability that as an industry, we can get to that carbon neutral positioning sooner than later. I think 2050 seems like a long way out. It's probably not, it's going to go, certainly it's going to go past my career and possible life. But I think we can get there sooner with the right concentration of the brains that we have in this industry and the initiatives that we have underway that I think are going to help us solve that. So I think we've got to be part of the discussion. We can't be defensive, and we've got to activate ourselves so that we are driving the decisions forward and not being the recipients of decisions that we're not going to like. And that's why I think, initiatives coming out of Meetings Mean Business or ICE or other, initiatives are really important, because we need to be driving these solutions and not being reactive, but being proactive.
Do you ever see that, virtual events or not gathering people in person is part of the solution that Maritz would propose?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think we still have a virtual practice. It's died down quite a bit over the last 2 years, but we're not ignoring that at all. And, we have some really interesting AI initiatives underway and have already rolled out a VR initiative around trade shows and a way to extend the life of trade shows in a very unique way. So we're not ignoring that at all. I do think as we see technology evolve, you've started to see holographic approaches at events in order to bring in, usually it's 1 or 2 people. It's not a whole audience, but I think technology is going to continue to evolve and bring new options to us. And so I think we have to keep, our eyes and ears open on that. But right now, I still think the in-person event is king. It's what people want. It's where they get the greatest value, and it's where their investment of time has the greatest return.
You mentioned AI already a few times. I wanted to get any more details that you have or any sense of expectation of where you expect it to go. I mean, it's developing at such a rapid rate, so I'm not expecting you to have the exact crystal ball, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, we've spent the last year with our innovation team and our technology teams really trying to understand the landscape. As I said, we've been involved in various aspects for quite a while, but the evolution of it has been so fast over the last 6 to 9 months. We have a board meeting coming up in August, and we have a whole session at that board meeting dedicated just to AI and the impacts on the business. We have a lot of internal processes and client-facing processes that are really ripe for AI intervention. We do a lot of bot work. We do a lot of different functions that can probably be automated or should be automated, and then free up our teams to do other things that are more impactful for our clients. And that's what we're looking at. So we're, like everyone else, we've looked at Web 3.0. We've looked at, what are the impacts of various different things on our business. We took those to our client advisory board in January and got a lot of great client feedback. But we're early in this journey, I think, like everyone else is. And so we're looking at it both internally and externally. and how do we bring the greatest value of using some of the new technologies to advantage ourselves and our clients.
Absolutely. I think that's a great position to be in, and trying to figure things out, right? Kind of
Yeah, that was
figure out what's
my
possible.
my subtle way of saying we're still like everyone else trying to figure it out.
Absolutely. I think we all are. So wanted to kind of go bigger picture, and talk about some of the challenges in the industry. And I correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that commissions are not something that Maritz relies on heavily. I don't know if at all. I remember speaking to Steve O'Malley about this, and he was saying that it's
Yeah.
something that was kind of not so much part of the picture as with other companies. And you mentioned some third parties, etc. I don't know if that's a challenge that you talk about a lot, but maybe let's start there, but also cover any kind of big challenges that you're seeing ahead. We've discussed sustainability and a few other things, but of course, I'm sure there are things that worry you more than others.
Yeah, I think, the commission model was ripe for change. We've known that for a long time. So when Marriott made their change, I've lost track of what year it was, 2019 or somewhere in there. We were prepared for that. We've got different sides of our business that use commissions in different ways, but that has evolved and it's evolved significantly over the pandemic, because if you weren't doing events, you didn't have hotel rooms being consumed, and you didn't have commissions. So we've changed our business model significantly. It had already changed on the corporate side of our business, but then it evolved much more on the association side. So, and we still, feel that commissions are earned. They are deserved, and our hotel partners realize that and recognize that and support those. But it can't be your only revenue source, and so how we treat those commissions is very different, I think, than most or many other companies. I should probably say not most. And so we've embraced that. We realized it was coming. We really spent a lot of time talking and interacting with our supplier partners to understand what their pain points were, where their needs were, and really partnered. And I think that's been our approach. Is we weren't going to fight it. We were going to say, how do we collaborate and make it work for all of us? So I think that's kind of where we are. We're in a very steady state. I think we've got great relationships with our supplier partners. Our clients and customers understand that environment, and I think we're, it's again a work in progress, but I think we're very content with where we are at this juncture. You don't know what's going to happen down the road, but we're keeping an eye on it. Would
you be able to share a rough kind of number of the, how much of your revenue comes from commissions, or anything to give us an idea of that?
Off the top of my head, it would be really tough because we have so many different revenue sources. It's a part of the business mix, but it's not a majority by any means.
So we're talking under 10%, maybe something like that?
Oh, no, it's more than that, but it's how those commissions are treated and what the relationship is with the client.
Okay, interesting. Well, thank you for sharing. But yeah, I would like to open up to any other challenges that you're seeing, and you're kind of like, how you're actually addressing these. Is AI, are you seeing AI as a challenge? Are you seeing the staffing issues that we've seen the last couple of years to be a continued challenge? Anything keeping you up at night?
Yeah, I think the biggest, AI, I think, is an opportunity. I think you can look at it in both ways, but we look at it as an opportunity. How do we maximize that for use to benefit our people, our employees, and our clients? So we're excited about that. We're our innovation practice again is really pushing that envelope, and so we're excited about the implications that can have for our business. I think the number one challenge, and I don't think it's anything new, is talent. Right? It's the acquisition of talent, the retention of talent, the ability to afford talent. So if there's one thing that is front and center with me all the time, it's around our people. And obviously we're a professional services organization. Our people are our assets. They walk in and out our doors every day, and they're critical to our customer relationships, our supplier relationships. And but it's a tricky environment. The Great Resignation, I think that has settled down quite a bit. We don't see nearly the amount of movement that we had just like 18 to 24 months ago. But the cost of talent has gone up significantly, is outstripping revenue growth for the most part. And that creates a business challenge. So how do we continue to make sure that we're getting the right people in the organization, we're keeping and retaining those people, recognizing, rewarding their efforts, providing career pathing and career growth for those people, and have what we've enjoyed for many, many, many generations, which is long-term, empowered, happy, fulfilled employees. And that's our number one goal. But it's tricky. It's, we're in an environment where we're not selling widgets, where I can change the price of a widget today and see the benefit of that within 30 days. We have long-term contracts. We don't have that kind of price flexibility that other industries do. And so we've got to work within those realities. So that's, to me, the number one challenge. And then I think you've already covered some, which is the whole environmental strategy, the impact of sustainability, DE&I, what that means long-term for the business, and how do we engage in that conversation and be proactive versus reactive, which I already covered.
Well, thank you for going there.
Can I throw in one other?
Of course, yeah.
One other challenge that I do think is front and center is the airlines. I think
Tell me more.
Well, I think sometimes we tend to, and even some of the airlines don't even consider themselves part of the events industry or hospitality, right? They're a transportation and intermodal solution. We've seen some change in that, but obviously the travel experience right now is really tough. We survey virtually every event and all of our guests, and the number one challenge they have is with the airline. It's the scheduling, it's the ticketing, it's the customer service, it's the experience. It's tough. It's a tough environment, and I think our industry is, we've already talked about the environmental aspect of it, but if we can't get people in the air, we can't get people to the events. It is really critical. And so it's good to see the airlines engaging in meeting to mean business. I think that's a real positive. And we need to continue to reach out and work with the airlines so that their model is healthy, but starts focusing more and more on the customer experience, because it's tough out there. And it can be really exhausting for the traveler.
Absolutely. I think a lot of us are feeling that, or have had experiences. I think my colleague Andrea Doyle was on the way to DI and had a 9-hour delay, I believe, something like that. So it's a tough one. But you mentioned kind of airlines getting a bit more involved. What would that look like ideally? Because I can kind of see it from both sides. I don't know how involved airlines normally are into the different kind of I guess sectors or way, feeding the airline industry. But what would you think that ideally would look like?
Yeah, I think, we're an interesting incubator for that, because we still have an internal guest services organization that does airline ticketing. We don't outsource that as part of our sort of our DNA. And so we're actively involved with all the airlines, and you can go brand by brand by brand, and I could tell you who's engaged in the events and who is not. And one of the major carriers made a big decision in the last few months to move out of the events space. They really disbanded their sales force, no longer have really a focus on group and group travel because they're reacting to the current environment, which is all about leisure, right? And the leisure traveler, while books much shorter, and as far as a booking window, typically is at a higher rate. And so the airlines are enjoying that. But we have a couple other examples of other airlines that have really gone all in on group, avoid, and seen the benefits of that. So even some airlines, and I will mention one like Southwest. Southwest is traditionally not focused much on the group segment, and we're seeing a change and a sea change with them. And they're engaging, I think, much more in that. So I think their recognition of the power of group travel, what it can mean, you can get those blocks booked far in advance. It gives them that base of business that they can then build on. And there's a lot of advantage to it. And the list could go on and on and on. So I see, one is their just recognition of the power of group travel, and two is engaging in the industry, whether it's at industry events like ASAE, PCMA, MPI, that list goes on, and critical organizations like Meeting Means Business, which is part of U.S. Travel Association now. And several of the airlines are now a member of that organization. So that's, I think, really positive signs of several airlines really engaging and seeing the value of our market segment.
That's really interesting. I definitely think we should expand that more at the Skift Meetings forum. So more to come. David, want to start wrapping up, but I wanted to get your advice. You mentioned the staffing issue, so I wanted to just get your advice quickly for any young people listening, any people that are kind of looking to maybe have a career as fulfilling as yours, or at least work in the business. What's your advice to those that are younger in the industry and looking to get involved and learn and have experience different things?
I think, and it's interesting, both of my children, I have a 26-year-old daughter and a 24-year-old son, and without any prodding from me, both have ended up in the industry, one with a destination management company and one with a hotel company. And what has been interesting for me to observe, and this is my little microcosm, the bigger picture here, is this is an incredible industry. I've been able to have a career that I never expected would have been very different had I been an attorney. The things that I've been exposed to, the variety of opportunities that I've really engaged in is very unique. I have a lot of friends in a lot of different industries, and they hear what we do and they're like, that sounds amazing. And it is amazing. So when I have an opportunity to talk to let's say a hospitality program, I think the pandemic scared a lot of people away because they saw the impact, but a lot of people went to technology. Well, that didn't prove to be all that secure. And so every industry is going to have its ups and downs. What I encourage them is to look at this as a career. I started as a front desk clerk at the Sitzmark Lodge in Vail, Colorado back in 1982. That was my first introduction to hospitality, to your original question, I think, and didn't really understand it. When I heard about hotel sales, it's like, what is that? Am I selling a hotel? I didn't get it. But it's an amazing career. And if you look at the leaders in our industry now and you find out how they started, everyone has a different story. A lot of people fell into it. Some actually went to hospitality programs and embarked on this as a career, but the opportunities are really unique. You can find your passion and the roles in this industry that address your passions unlike any other, right? If you want to go, as I mentioned, if you want to go on the operations side, food and beverage, you're a project manager, you want sales, you want marketing, you want domestic, you want global. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So I think what I encourage, and I talk to all of our employees at Maritz, is you can have a full career within the walls of Maritz. You can have an amazing career within the walls of hospitality and events. And I think it's easy to get distracted by dollars. And with my own kids, I talk to them about, money is important, but being fulfilled and being passionate about what you do each and every day is the ultimate payment. And that's the ultimate compensation. The money will come. And so, I just read an interview with Barack Obama, and he said he's a fan of people paying their dues. And that's not real popular with some of the newer generations, but I think it's still very appropriate and applicable is, get in, learn, work hard. Number one thing is network, right? Join an organization, whether it's MPI, PCMA, ASAE, SITE, all IAEE, the list goes on and on and on. Get involved, learn, network. Every one of those jobs I mentioned in my career happened because of a relationship I had built in one way or another through that individual network that I built. And so it never ceases to amaze me of how that pays off over time. And you may not know it today, but it'll surprise you tomorrow. So, get involved, roll up your sleeves, dig in, work hard, and it's an amazing industry to build a career in.
Excellent advice. Thank you for sharing. Want to wrap up with the last question that we ask all our guests. If you could recommend someone else that we should have on the podcast.
I think you already heard me mention a couple names. I mean, I think Greg Bogue, he's our Chief Experience and Brand Officer. Greg is one of the unique minds in the industry, and he's been a true innovator and a pioneer, I think, in event design. Jim Gilmore is someone that we've partnered with for decades. Jim is an amazing brain and intellect and designer. And he's really helped us evolve and build our practice forward. Those are two that I think would be really powerful voices for this podcast and bring a different perspective. And I think would be strong recommendations, one internal and one external.
I appreciate it. We'll take them both with pleasure. David, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. I hope everybody listening enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. As I said, David will be with us at the Skift Meetings Forum on the 27th of September in New York City. So if you're interested, let us know. David, looking forward to seeing you there, and wishing you all the best in the meanwhile.
Thank you, Miguel. Yeah, thank you. And I look forward to seeing you in September.